everyone, this is of course Mizpah
and Pseudo
from MMOBuff.TV, but as usual we're not joined just by ourselves because that wouldn't be very interesting, nor is it the focus of our camera shot. So perhaps the two gentlemen here would like to introduce themselves.
Oh, okay, I'm Pawel, I'm the lead artist on Total War Attila.
And I'm Janos Gasper and I'm the project lead designer on Total War Attila.
I'm just going to dig right in. I have to ask, what is your inspiration in choosing to go with, say, Atilla over, say, China?
Think about Attila as instantly as a name. Attila is a very important person in the history, especially for his contemporary people. He was almost like Alexander the Great. He, by himself, made an empire beyond imagination, and that's very important and interesting thing. And meanwhile, we can basically seal the Book of Rome. It's a very nice ending chapter for our last game, and it's a very nice new chapter. We just got into the brink of the Dark Ages and to the birth of the new medieval Europe.
Yeah, and he's just such a complex and interesting character. You know, like Janos says, this is the dawn of the Dark Ages, and Attila, and you know, it's a time of religion, and Attila is the scourge of God. You know, he's the big bad. He's coming for you. You know, so it's just a really powerful kind of narrative that we've got with Attila.
So how are you planning on breaking down the individual culture, so to speak? Because with most Total War franchises, you have the individual sects or the different clans or what have you. How do you plan to do it with Attila?
Yeah, similarly to other Total War games, we have multiple cultures, and the map is bigger than Rome 2's map, so even bigger. Yeah. That'll
take a long time to play.
And essentially, for example, you have the Romans. They are still around. The Roman Empire is still quite powerful, but their forces are essentially stretched through a very thin on a very long border, and they are strong. They are there. They are playable. We have barbarian factions. On the east, there's a big Sassanid Empire, and there are the Huns who are coming for you. So.
And it's worth mentioning that with Rome we've got the two empires. We've got the West Roman Empire and the East Roman Empire, and the West Roman Empire is crumbling. You know, it's kind of barbarians are hacking away at the gates, on all sides, and it's a real kind of survival strategy. It's our first legendary start position, playing as the West Romans. So it's quite a big deal.
Okay, so what we have here is the next iteration of the Total War franchise. What are you bringing besides just Attila that's different this time? I mean, have you modified the game engine to allow you more flexibility with, say, the RTS aspects, or are you focusing more on...
Lots.
We did a lot, both on the campaign side, both on the battle side. So, for example, we have a brand new climate change system. So it's not just the seasons are changing. You could encounter that in previous Total Wars, but here as you progress into the game, essentially the climate is deteriorating. Winters will be longer and longer. The snow line is moving more and more to the south, so it essentially brings everyone who lives in the north to start and just trying to push towards the southern part of the Mediterranean.
It's worth mentioning that this was historical. You know, during this time it was the end of the Roman warm period, and the climate was changing and getting colder. So it's we're introducing that as that mechanic. So there's more. I mean, there's so much to talk about. We have a new to go with this kind of whole kind of vibe of destruction. We've got you can for the first time completely obliterate settlements from the face of the campaign map. You can basically, when you choose to raise a settlement, you can completely destroy it. At the same time, if you need to consolidate or deny territory, you can abandon your own settlement, completely wiping it off the face of the campaign, and it will take considerable resources to resettle that region again, because you can recolonize it essentially at great cost, starting from scratch. So that's a big thing.
Yeah, and generally, as it's an apocalyptic survival Total War game, we brought a lot of features that's all about destruction and about the darker side of the war. For example, we have dynamic spreading fire on the battlefield, so you can properly burn down whole settlements, and that's a valid tactic because as they're burning down more and more of a settlement, the defenders suffer moral penalties, and after a while they might just run away because they think that's nothing left to defend, and this damage is persistent. So if you get out from the bottle and you can see it and it's there on the campaign map, it essentially ruins your economy if some settlement was burned down. And if you load back to a bottle later, the settlement is still partially destroyed unless you repair it. And it's a very important thing, and you have to consider when you start to lay siege against a settlement. Do I want to capture it? Because if I want to capture it, I might need to spare it as much as possible because it has a long-term consequence. And for example, the siege escalation.
Yeah. Also worth mentioning, just before I touch on siege escalation, with the whole kind of preserving the settlement so you don't fully destroy it, we've got a new type of unit, a raider unit, which is basically a cheap, undisciplined unit that, if let into the settlement, will spontaneously throw torches and try and burn and pillage the settlement. So you have to make a real kind of balance, a choice of balance. Do I take these units into the settlement? Do I leave them outside so they don't completely destroy it? And with siege escalation, we have the longer you besiege a settlement on the campaign, the more turns you spend sieging it, you will see that effect on the actual settlement in the battle. If you attack straight away, it'll be a pristine city, the walls will be strong, and it'll be a really difficult fight to try and take it.
Walking around because we have civilians as well this time around.
Civilians just doing their thing, and whatever, and basically fleeing from the attackers. And if they sometimes they may choose to engage, other times they'll run. And if you besiege the settlement for several turns and you go into the battle, some walls will be breached. There will be kind of trenches and kind of fortifications around the actual settlement, and it will feel like it's been going on for months. So yeah, it's lots of stuff.
Yeah, and again, it's like in the siege maps, you can place down special barricades that you can mount people on them. So you can play almost like a tower defense game within your settlement. You can channel the enemy troops, and basically that's a very good choice for the defending player as well. Is should I let them into the settlement? Basically, trick them into different traps. I can possibly beat a much bigger army in that case, but they might destroy my settlement and my defenders are running away. Or should I fight them at the walls or even outside the wall and try to stop them destroying anything? So there are a lot of new choices came with this thing.
Because these barricades basically block the street completely, so you can completely block off several streets to kind of plan your
yeah, and you can put very squishy in. It's like an archer on it, and it completely changes how a street fight is happening, because previously street fight is two heavy units are just basically tug of war on the street, but this time around you can put a very squishy unit. Even if the heavy cover is coming against them, they are basically just blocked by the barricade, by the archers that are shooting them point blank, and it can be a very good tactic. When they start to destroy the barricade, you just pull back your unit to the next line of defense, set up a new trap, so you can basically just constantly fall back if you need to do that.
I want to touch on the main protagonist here and talk for a moment about Atilla. There's obviously a lot of sort of mythos and story and legend around the character, and I'm quite sure that a lot of that is far removed from the truth, as these things usually are. So could you typify for us the character sort of Atilla, his achievements, before everyone starts running away and researching this new era? What are we going to find when we open the lid on this era and this character?
Oh, so much. I mean, a lot of it is legend, but it's based on a lot of evidence that he was, and it's important to mention that, again, like we touched on the religion. It's a time where a lot of the civilized world felt they overindulged and that they're going to be punished. And these tales of this rider coming from the steppes, to punish them. He was the scourge of God coming to basically to punish them to pay for their sins. This is a period where the four horsemen of the apocalypse. This is the ultimate apocalypse. This is the birth of the apocalypse as a concept, at least in the classical world. So it's and there's so much.
Yeah, it was very important for us to essentially increase the immersion for the players. We try to tell the story from the point of view of contemporary people. Yep. So essentially, as you play, all the events and everything is based on this kind of scourge of God, and he's here to punish people for their sins. even our overarching storyline is essentially based on the seven seals and the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And obviously Attila is the bad guy. He's coming and he's trying to basically eradicate all that's sinful.
So basically, with each opening of the seal, there are several omens, and you know, and you know, you feel this kind of this impending doom as you're playing. These tales, you know, from migrating peoples, and it's constantly building to something.
And this makes the whole game very dynamic because you have the climate change. So everyone that who lives in the north start to basically get towards the south. And meanwhile, Attila comes, and Attila is building up his forces, comes and just pushing everyone from the east. And all of these people are just crumbling and crushing into the borders of the empire. And meanwhile, there's this new whole scorched earth tactic. So it will be very dynamic and interesting to play.
Now you can tell who's the different types of player. He wants to know the story. I want to know combat. Okay, so you guys, each iteration you have allowed army sizes to become a little bit bigger and a little bit more evolved in what units you can have. Are we going to see that same evolution in this version? Or are you going to give us more units? I like watching the horses. So.
We still have the same amount of units if you're think about like the number of soldiers on the battlefield, but it's already a huge amount. So you can have up to like 56,000 individual soldiers fighting on this virtual battlefield. So that's a lot, but we increased the fidelity of the soldiers. So if you look at their uniform, you look at the units, they are even higher quality than the Rome 2 ones. And we have a couple of new unit types. For example, there are crossbows around, and for example, 200 axes. So there are essentially what came with this new era. It's in the game.
And the battles feel very different as well. The dynamic and the actual the balance of the units and how you fight. You know, the pace is quite different as well. So it feels like a very different kind of combat style because it is, you know, it is a much later period. So
yeah, and we completely built up a balance around different directives. So, for example, the fatigue system is different. Fatigue is building up very quickly, but you can get rid of very quickly as well. So it's more tactical. You can pull back units that are fighting and just rotate units on the front. And there are a lot of new tactics opened up with this.
One of the things that a lot of our readers and our followers have been asking is, you know, some people really love the RTS element of this game. Some people still just focus more on the turn-based side and auto-resolve all those wonderful battles. They're missing out on it, but hey, they like. But some of them have been worried that the AI has been sort of lagging behind in the evolution of the games you've been doing, especially for those who auto-resolve. Has there been any modification to the AI this time around for the auto-resolve?
Yes, we constantly work on the auto-resolver, so there are updates in the auto-resolver as well and the AI system, so AI is supporting all the new systems.
We always try and improve the feedback as well that you get from that and from the choices that you make and try and improve the way that you can actually, you know, make those choices and decide how, you know, how it would go.
Yeah.
So yeah. But speaking of something we haven't mentioned, we talked about, you know, things, you know, favorite new things. Disease is one of my favorite things. It's something.
Disease in.
Yeah. Basically.
Oh boy, it's like Oregon Trail, but a little more rough.
Yeah, because we've rebalanced the way you know, the relationship between sanitation and squalor. Squalor, you know, no longer affects happiness directly in public order. It's basically, you know, if you can have a happy populace but living in squalor. But the more squalor you have, if you don't counter it with enough sanitation, don't, you know, alleviate that, you bring chance to, you know, diseases, you know, coming up in your settlements and spreading. You know, they can spread via trade routes, they can spread via armies, and I mean, you can.
Yeah, it's like if you besiege a settlement, the army can get the disease, and you can carry it to long distances, even use it as a biological weapon if you have a diseased army and just basically try to infect others. We have different types of diseases, so they can differ in infectiousness and severity and lifetime, and some of them are just long going. It's more like just an annoyance, and it's just basically just causes some morale issues and the minimal amount of attrition, but there are ones that are very, very serious and they can completely eradicate armies. So yeah, it's very important.
It's the dawn of the Dark Ages, right? Medicine isn't very good at this time. So if it's all about the prevention, because once it starts, it's going to be very hard to actually get rid of it.
Yeah, and it can change how you play the game as well, because if something happened, you might want to seal down your settlements, not moving forces around, because that can be a serious problem if you spread it around or across
your.
your.
All it takes is you moving a forest to another settlement, and you've just spread your disease.
Even trade.
It can.
You can trade it.
Even the trade routes can spread disease from settlement to settlement. So you might have to just completely quarantine your.
So you're adding a whole new level of strategy to this.
Yeah.
And is that the only other thing, just besides more units and things?
Oh, there's there's lots.
There are lots.
There's lots.
Spill the beans here.
Oh, can't tell you everything.
I guess one thing I'd throw in is, obviously, with the mindset of religion, at the time, people were fighting for what they believed in. It would seem to me to be a chance to sort of revisit those mechanics and further piety and all those sorts of things. How are we seeing religion used as simply as a storyline or a backdrop, or is religion being used in a mechanical sense?
It's mechanical, so every single nation or faction has its own state religion, and that can shift over time. So people are wandering around, and religious conversion just happen. You can switch your state religion. Every religion comes with an effect, so you might want to just go for something because it fits your like more militant gameplay better than other religion. And there are a lot of religious events as well. So especially we are focusing here the early Christian ones. So the 5 pentarchies, the pentarchies is a very important part as well. So this whole heresy and fighting against different heretics, different sects within the Christian religion, and just against the pagans is very important. But if you go, for example, or if you want to go for a revival of the old gods, you can do it. You can turn back this whole thing and just
go back to the old ways.
Pagan.
Yeah.
And and then, for example, we have family trees back. That's something that fans really liked, and this was essentially really opt for this period of time, because now we are much more focused on a more like human scale time frame, and you can manage your family members around. You can adopt people, even you can get wives through diplomatic marriage, and you can marry out your daughters.
But not just that, you can also assign governors through the family tree. So you can assign governors to a region, and basically that governor, that you can't enact edicts unless you've assigned the governor now, right? And that governor isn't just a picture in a family tree. If that settlement gets attacked and he's there with his garrison force, you will see him on the battlefield, and you will potentially lose him in a fight.
He will be the general.
He will be the general.
Sometimes it's very good to put him on a border province because. This is a rank 9, it's a very veteran general. He will be better there because he's defending my borders.
And all of the skills, all the traits that these characters kind of acquire during the course of the game will benefit their governorship with various bonuses. So it's a real choice of who you put where and why because of all the benefits that you can reap from it.
So with all the changes in mechanics, what core change in mindset are previous players from the series going to need to bring with them? Can you approach this game in the same way we've approached all the others and expect to be successful?
Yeah. You can, if you play with, for example, a barbarian faction, where it's similarly like you start small and you have to expand yourself and carve out something from Rome. But for example, if you play with Rome, you have to completely change your mindset. Because it's a legendary start plus, you're bound to fail. You shouldn't survive. But you can if you're a very good player. But for that, you will have to select things you want to lose. It's like I'm abandoning Britain. I don't care about like France. I just try to keep my core territories and defend that, and try to basically wait until this big movement ended and then reconquer everything. So
because you'll be pressured on all sides, and your empire is huge. So you really have to choose what to lose before you can win. Yeah.
I have so many questions, but it is so unfair how limited our time is. Just know I'm extremely ecstatic about this, and the amount of people who have been in touch and said, it better be Attila, it better be Attila, it better be Attila. Well, if it's not Attila, it
is
China.
Attila.
It better be China. So thank you so much for sharing everything with us.
Very welcome.
You guys have a fantastic rest of your Eurogamer, and it's Mizpah.
Indeed. As usual, Mizpah from MMOBuff, signing off.
And it's Pseudo. Toodle pip, guys.